Hey, what is up, fellow raiders? This is Vulcan Dan, and in today's Raid Shadow Legends video, we will talk about the times 10 shard event that will begin tomorrow. That will also be coinciding with the summon rush that is a part of the current fragment event. And of course, we are expecting 20 fragments to be available for this summon rush. But if you have completed every single tournament and event, you've gotten all of the fragments, and you plan to, of course, get all of the remaining fragments from the remaining tournaments and events, you can skip Summon Rush if you also get first or second place in at least one tournament to get 5 extra fragments. If you do in just a single tournament, you can get a total of 100 fragments for Upper Than Clanfather, so you are not required to pull any shards during this Summon Rush, during this times 10 event. Personally, I have gotten my 5 extra fragments by placing second in the first Classic Arena takedown of this fragment event. There will be one more in a few days, so if you're still looking for that 5 extra fragments, that is your chance. But if you're not confident, then you might need to get at least 5 fragments from the Summon Rush to get those 100 total for Upper Than Clanfather. But yeah, we do have a few tournaments live right now. We have, I believe, a a champion training tournament, an ice golem tournament, which of course people don't really like to go hard on ice golem. So this may be a good chance for you to get the first or second place, to get those 5 extra fragments. Of course, this tag arena tournament that will begin tomorrow, that is not part of the fragment event. But yeah, get those 5 extra fragments. You don't need to pull any shards during this summon rush like myself. But yeah, we do have a few good legendaries here. The epics, not so much. For the Void legendary, the times 10 champion tomorrow is Laorius the Proud, which is a really good Void legendary. He is sort of the legendary version of Skull Crown, and he does have AoE on his A2 and his A3. His A2 hits twice, and this champion will be immune to all of the crowd control effects if this skill is not on cooldown. So you would not want to use this on his first turn, especially in the arena. You would want to start with his A3. It's also an AoE hit, 4-turn cooldown, 100% chance of placing a True Fear for 1 turn if booked. Before attacking, has a 100% chance of placing Weaken on all enemies for 2 turns. And the theme for this times 10 event seems to be that all of these champs will place Weaken, which is kind of a decent skill, sort of similar to Decreased Defense, will increase the damage that you deal to the enemy. Alright, so this is a very hard-hitting A3 right here, very hard-hitting A2 as well. And then his A1 is a double hitter. Each hit has a 60% chance of placing Decreased Defense for 2 turns, and damage increases by 20% if the target has less than 60% HP, which also works with his passive. His passive places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn before receiving a fatal hit. So this is the part wherein he's similar to Skull Crown and also having double AoE attacks. And his damage increases as the champion's HP decreases by 1% for every 1% of HP loss. So if he, for some reason, does not go first in the arena and he gets hit really hard, it's down to 1% HP, and then he gets his chance to do this AoE hit, it can hit really, really hard. And I've had a few battles wherein my team almost wiped because I faced against a Laorius the Proud and used this skill on me, and there were times where I almost wiped. There were a few times where I did wipe there. So yeah, be careful about this champion when facing him in the arena. Definitely a really, really good Void legendary. Now, next one is my first legendary in Raid Shadow Legends, Dracomorph. A lot of people, of course, really love this guy. One of the most sought after legendaries, especially back then in the early days of Raid. The funny thing is, and I've said this in a previous video, is that I didn't even realize that I've pulled a legendary champion because at that time I was still new, still learning the game, and I didn't know I had this gold bordered champion, and I didn't know that it was already a legendary. I didn't even know if I pulled him from an ancient shard, sacred shard, but yeah, Draco, my first legendary, really good, really hard hitting A1. The more debuffs that you have on the enemy, the more damage he will do, up to 100% if you have a total of 10 debuffs on the target. So it will basically double the damage that he will deal. Of course, on top of any weaken, decreased defense, or really hard hitting A1. A2 attacks 4 times at random and places a 5% poison debuff for 3 turns on each hit. So that would of course place 4 poisons. If it's just a single boss, then all 4 hits and all 4 poisons will go to that one boss. The A3 is not an attack, but it just places a weaken and a decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns. All of these are great for the clan boss. He is in my EC double man eater clan boss team. He deals so much damage with his A1, and then I just make sure that he places poisons and this decreased defense and weaken. So all debuffs on the clan boss is placed by Draco, and then I just shut off his A2 and A3 so that he does his A1 every single time for the rest of the fight, because I do have a Vizier on that team, which will increase the duration of the poisons, the decreased defense, and the weaken. So the whole fight, he just does his A1 until I reach that one key Ultra Nightmare. So yeah, Draco, really good champion, one of the best in the game. Next one is also in the Lizardmen Roxanne. I got this guy from an extra legendary event. Looks really cool, has the chameleon kind of art. His whole kit revolves around having perfect veil. All of his attacks work better if he has perfect veil on himself. His A1 attacks one enemy, has a 50%, can be booked up to a 60% chance of filling this champion's turn meter by 10%, and a 60% chance of placing a perfect veil on this champion for 1 turn if this attack is critical. He is an attack type champion, so you would want to build him with high damage, high crit rate, high crit damage, and of course he will place a perfect veil on himself on his A1, but he would also benefit from someone else placing a veil on him, such as a Duchess. That would be great. And his A2 attacks one enemy, fills this champion turn meter by 50%, and then 100% chance when book of placing a stun on the target when attacking under veil. Has a 100% chance of placing a sleep if he doesn't have a veil. So yeah, of course, stun is a lot better than sleep, so you would want to have him veiled every single turn, and places a perfect veil on this champion for 2 turns after attacking if he was not under a veil or perfect veil at the beginning of that attack. And his A3 is an AoE hit, places decreased defense and weaken, similar to Draco, but the difference is Roxanne will also make an attack and will decrease the cooldown of Jungle Ambush, which is his A2, by 2 turns. This is on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, so that will just make it a 1-turn cooldown. Very cool. But if he's not under veil, he will instead just attack one enemy, and then he will place a perfect veil on himself for 2 turns after attacking. So every single one of his skills will place perfect veil if he's not currently under a perfect veil. But yeah, this one from an AoE hit will become a single target hit. Of course, you would want him to do the AoE. I do use Roxanne in my Lizardmen Faction Wars. He is a really cool champion. The veil keeps him alive and he does hit really hard. Plus, places a block debuff, strengthen on this champion for 1 turn, and a heal for 2 turns whenever they receive a veil or perfect veil, which will of course happen quite often because of his skills. Yeah, so I really like this champion, really happy that I pulled him. Really makes a big difference in shortening the time that I do in stage 21 of Lizardmen Faction Wars. Alright, and the last of the legendaries, we have... Where is he? There you go. So Suzerain, yeah. So very good champion as well. All of his attacks are AoE. AoE A1 with decreased speed, AoE A2 with weaken and decreased defense if he does not place that weaken. So either way, he will place a debuff. And then his A3 removes shield, block damage, and unkillable from everyone, then attacks them, places a 100% heal reduction debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and this buff removal cannot be blocked or resisted. Now, take note, he is an attack type champion, but he does not hit very hard. But since all of his attacks are AoE hit, he does work well in a stun set, which is how I use him again in my Undead Hordes Faction Wars. I have him in stun set, so he will do an AoE hit every single turn, placing decreased speed, weaken, decreased defense, removing buffs, placing heal reduction. So he is a very good champion, placing stuns every single turn. So yeah, I still use him in my stage 21 Faction War. So I would say that all of these legendary champions are quality ones, and if you're pulling for them, these 4 legendaries are probably worth it. But the epics, not so good. All right, let's go to the Void epic first. From the Knights Revenant, this is probably the best epic from the roster that we have right now. Skull Crown, yeah. So of course, AoE A2, AoE A1, his A2 also places weaken, and then her A1 places an extra hit if the target has more than 50% HP. So often used in blender comps in the arena with Synacia, because of course Synacia has a similar A1 but will place an extra hit if the target has less than 50% HP. So they kind of work together as long as you make sure that Skull Crown goes first in that blender team. And of course, a very good ally arena speed aura, 23%. I do use her in my as my campaign farmer, and I've also pulled her very early in this account. So I used I believe I used Haikatoon, Draco, and then her. And of course, Draco will place a decreased defense and the weaken, and then Skull Crown will nuke them down. So yeah, that was my early game arena team back, I think, 2 years ago. All right, next one, let's go to Bannerlord. This is one of the newer epic champions that we've gotten. I think he's the one from the most recent update. Arndulf, yeah, looks really cool. He does look fat from a front view, but when you go to a side view, that belly sort of disappears. But yeah, kind of an optical illusion there. But yeah, his A1 has a chance to provoke. His A2 is an AoE hit with 100% chance to place weaken and a chance to place fear. Actually a very good A2 right here on a 3-turn cooldown defensive based champion. And then his A3 places reflect damage on everyone for 2 turns and counterattack on himself for 2 turns. A very good skill for Fire Knight. And then this A2 also works well in the Fire Knight waves, also for Faction Wars. This can also be good for Faction Wars. So if you do happen to pull him and you're some of an early or mid-game account, then this champion can be quite useful for your Fire Knight, Faction Wars, and maybe some of the early game Doom Tower runs. All right, next one, let us go to Sacred Order. We have Talia, triple hit A1, and has a places an increased attack on herself, just the weak version. Increased crit rate for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies. And then if you have Phoenix on the same team, she will also have a chance to place bomb that will detonate after 3 turns. Actually, this is a very poor skill right here because 3 turns is a very long time for bombs to go off. We would want it to be at least 1 or 2 turns. 3 turns is really a very long time. But Phoenix is a very good champion. Talia, on the other hand, doesn't really get much playtime, but she is quite decent in Fire Knight because of this triple hit A1. And this A3 also is a little bit decent for Fire Knight, although it is on a 5-turn cooldown. Talia really needs some sort of upgrade, some gear, or I mean some kit rework, because right now she is quite underpowered compared to other some of the new epic champions. On her A3, she places a counterattack on herself for 2 turns and a chance to place weaken on enemies for 2 turns. No attack here. She simply places this debuff and this buff on herself. So yeah, really needs an upgrade. Very underutilized champion. And the last one from the demon spawn, we have Tarashan. Again, cool looking champion there. Defense based, has a chance to provoke on his A1, AoE on his A2 with a chance to place weaken on a 3-turn cooldown, and places increased defense on everyone and fills their turn meter by 20%. So can be a very good speed booster in the arena because we don't have a lot of increased defense with a turn meter fill for a champion skill, and this one does the job quite well. Of course, we have champions like Siphi, who does a similar skill, but of course, Siphi is very difficult to pull from shards. So Tarashan can be somewhat of your Siphi, but just maybe 1% of her power level. All right, but yeah, he's a decent champion. Especially, you can start with this A3 and then go into his AoE A2. Can be good for faction wars, can be good for early game arena. Also has a nice passive, places a strengthen on himself whenever their HP drops below 50%. So he can last a very long time in a fight. So I think early game arena, especially with this provoke on his A1, can be quite decent. Early game faction wars as well. But yeah, those are the 8 champions that we have for this times 10 event for the weekend. The legendaries are great. The epics, not so much. But my suggestion is to really try to save shards as much as possible. Do not pull shards this weekend unless you really do need those extra 5 fragments for the Upper Din Clanfather fragment event. But yeah, if you're planning to pull shards, good luck and hope you get the legendary or epic that you guys want. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you found this useful, and I'll see you guys in my next video.